Hello marine biology students. This week we're going to be talking about marine vertebrates, and we're going to start by discussing the diversity of fish. So in the videos for this week, we're going to talk about the diversity of marine fish physiology and behavior, marine reptiles, marine birds and non-cetacean marine mammals, and then everyone's favorite, the cetaceans. Marine fish are vertebrates. Meaning they have a skull and a backbone. Some have vertebrae made of cartilage, and others of bone. More than half of the known species of fish are marine. They are the oldest and most structurally simple of all living vertebrates. They are the largest group of vertebrates in terms of species, measuring about half of all vertebrate species, and in abundance. Meaning there are more fish and more different types of fish than there are other types of vertebrates. The three major classes of fish are the agnathans, or jawless fish, the chondrichthyans, or cartilaginous fish, and the Osteichthyes, or bony fish. And we'll talk a bit more about each of these three groups. Looking at their organization, the fish collectively fall into these areas, and they aren't necessarily a monophyletic group, but we do see that they have shared characteristics. So, starting with the agnathans. These are the lampreys and the hagfish, some of my least favorite marine organisms. Being jawless, it's not that they don't have a mouth, it's that their mouth is not supported by a movable bone. Instead, it is muscular. A circular mouth with circular rows of teeth. Both hagfish and lampreys have long cylindrical bodies. And they lack the paired fins and scales seen in other fishes. So starting with the hagfish. They are exclusively marine. They tend to feed on dead and dying fish and other marine organisms and carcasses in the water. They live in burrows and soft sediments. And one of their most distinctive traits is that they produce large quantities of mucus from skin glands for protection while they're feeding on other organisms. There are over 70 different species of hagfish. Here we see a diagram of a hagfish. It has gill slits, it has a mouth, and that white line are the mucus gland pores. The next type of agnathan are the lampreys. They live both in freshwater and seawater. And they are anadromous, meaning that they start their life in freshwater but then go out to sea and then return to freshwater to breed, normally after which they would die. Instead of the hagfish, which feed on dead and dying organisms, the lampreys feed on the living. They are parasites, and they rasp onto the sides of fish with their sucker-like mouths, consuming blood, tissue, and body fluids. Really, they're things out of nightmares. They are not pleasant and can end up having a significant impact on the local fish populations in the areas where they frequent. Our next group of fish are the chondrichthyans, or cartilaginous fish. These include sharks, rays, skates, and ratfish. They have a skeleton made entirely of cartilage. They have a movable jaw with well-developed teeth. And their mouth is always ventral, meaning on the underside of their body, below their snout. Chondrichthyans have a special type of scale known as a placoid scale, which has a similar shape and composition as teeth. They also have paired fins. In the chondrichthyans, most males have specialized structures coming off of their anal fins, known as claspers. And these are used during copulation, or sexual intercourse. Chondrichthyans have 5 to 7 gill slits, which open directly into the water in most species. Many chondrichthyans also have spiracles, which are openings above their mouths, which allow water to enter into their gill cavities. So here we see a diagram of a chondrichthyan, in this case a shark. We can see the paired fins, the placoid scales, the ventral mouth, and some of the other features. Another aspect that we'll see in sharks that we'll talk about is a heterocircle tail. What that means is the two lobes of the tail are of different sizes. So the first group of chondrichthyans we'll discuss are the sharks. They are primarily marine, but some species do travel up in rivers. As I had mentioned, they have a heterocircle tail, meaning the top lobe is larger than the bottom lobe. Most species have 2 dorsal fins, with one of them usually being the more prominent and obvious, and enlarged pectoral fins to provide lift. Many sharks are carnivores. With powerful jaws and triangular teeth. Sharks have a lateral line, which is a sensory system that we'll see in many types of fish, yet they also have these specialized organs in their snout, known as the ampullae of Lorenzini. This structure allows sharks to detect electrical currents in the water that often may be emitted by small prey. So here we see a picture of a sand tiger shark, showing off rows of triangular teeth and openings of the ampulla of Lorenzini that would detect those electrical signals. But there is variety in shark diets, with some sharks being filter feeders. This includes the largest of the sharks, which are the whale sharks and the basking sharks. These filter feeders make use of the gill rakers, which are extensions from their gill arches for filtering water for their prey. Sharks have a variety of reproductive strategies, including laying eggs or being oviparous, laying eggs that then hatch within the female's reproductive system, which is ovoviviparous, or in some species not laying eggs at all, but the young developing in a uterus and receiving nutrients from the mother by an organ that is almost like the placenta in mammals. These would be viviparous. The next type of chondrichthyan or cartilaginous fish we want to talk about are the rays. In some ways, they are similar to sharks in that their skeleton is made entirely of cartilage. However, their pectoral fins are expanded into wings, and their entire body is dorsoventrally flattened. Like sharks, they have gill slits and mouth, and these are ventral, or on the bottom. And spiracles, which allow the intake of water, are located at the top of the body. Now, most rays spend much of their time on the bottom. They are demersal fishes, and they spend that time partially covered in sediments. As a form of disguise and protection from predators. Rays have large flattened teeth for crushing mollusks. crabs and other bottom fish. So they aren't preying on fish or using the sediments as a way to ambush their prey. So here we see a stingray and a manta ray. The stingray will be demersal. However, manta rays actually swim within the water column. They are filter feeders, and so they need to filter large amounts of seawater to get their planktonic food. Most rays have long, whip-like tails, and some even have a spine at the base of the tail with an associated poison gland. That's the case in stingrays. Electric rays have organs that produce electricity on either side of their head. Manta rays are plankton feeders in mid-water. Like the filter-feeding sharks, they use their gill rakers for filtering water. All rays give birth to live young. They are either ovoviviparous or viviparous. Our next group of chondrichthyans are the skates. In a lot of ways, skates look like a combination between rays and sharks. Like rays, skates are dorsoventrally flattened. With large, wing-like pectoral fins. However, unlike rays, skates have a fleshy tail and no spine on their tail. Also, unlike rays, skates always lay egg cases, so they are oviparous. Skates are also demersal. And feed primarily on mollusks. The last group of chondrichthyans that we'll discuss are the chimera, or ratfish. They are mostly a deep-water species. And some of the differences between them and the other chondrichthyans is that they have a cover over their gill slits. They feed primarily on bottom crustaceans and mollusks. And they have a heterocircle tail, like in sharks. The last group of fish that we'll be talking about are the Osteichthyans. They have a skeleton composed of bones. Now, most fish have a homocircle tail. Meaning that the two lobes of the tail are equal in size, and that this typically provides their forward thrust. They will also have flat bony scales that are ctenoid or cycloid. There will be a bony structure known as the operculum that covers the gills. And they will usually have a swim bladder for buoyancy control, although some demersal species will not have this structure. Fish use a lateral line for sensory information about vibrations in the water. There are over 31,000 species known, both freshwater and marine, and they equal about half of all known vertebrate species. So here we see a diagram of an Osteichthyan. The mouth is located terminally instead of ventrally like in the chondrichthyans. We see the operculum covering over the gills. They do have paired fins, but the scales and the tail are different than what we saw in chondrichthyans. The major divisions of the Osteichthyans are into ray-finned fish versus lobe-finned fish. Although, to be fair, the vast majority of bony fish are ray-finned fish, with only very few being lobed-finned. Now, the reason why we care about lobe-finned fish is because they are believed to be the ancestors of the first vertebrates to go onto land. What makes a ray-finned fish different is that their fins are made up of a bony ray covered by skin. whereas the lobefin fish have fins that have bones and muscles within them. And this is why the lobefin fish are believed to be the ancestors of the amphibians, because they had fins that could be modified into limbs or appendages. So that completes our discussion on the different types of fish. Now, a question I want you to think about before our next video is, what would you need to do differently if you were living submerged in seawater? We'll talk about that in the next video. See you then.